All right, guys, we're here. We're live. As always, we're a little bit behind schedule, but that's okay. I'm back at home, and we're joined today. Got to turn my Facebook off. We're joined today by a man that you guys may not know. You may not know nothing about this guy. If you don't watch poker, you might never heard of this guy before. If you're new to poker, Daniel Negreanu. What kind of introduction was that? I'm not sure. What's going on, DN?
How you doing, boss? You all right there?
Dude, I'm so frazzled right now. I walked in my apartment, I sat down. There's it's got 5 minutes to go. Now I'm ready to go, man. How are you? Thanks for joining us today. We're happy to have you here, man.
Yeah, your hair is perfect. Don't worry. It looks good.
We can't talk about what happened before I got on the right now. All right, guys. So we're joined today by Daniel Negreanu, Kid Poker himself. And for those people that don't know about Kid Poker, normally we describe the guest to people, but with you I feel like we don't need to give a description. But if we had to describe yourself, what would we say about you?
Me? What would we say about me?
What would we say about you?
Poker-wise?
Let's do both.
You could combine both. Say somebody who has done really good at tournaments and stuff like that. Has a voice and isn't afraid to share it, both in life and in poker. If I believe in something, I'm going to say so. Occasionally I'm wrong, and if I find out that I am, I'll come clean and, admit it. But I don't believe in being wishy-washy. I'm not afraid of confrontation. I'm that kind of person who, if I believe in something, I'm going to say so, even if no one else agrees with me, which happens occasionally too.
Okay, so we got good at tournaments, good at poker, not afraid to speak your mind, not afraid of confrontation, and pretty much will stand up to what you believe in. I think as an accurate representation, right? Yeah,
and I would say that a word that's rings true to me, and it means a lot to me. It's deeper than people usually give it, is integrity. People think of integrity in a very limited way. I think of it in a big way. Just even the smallest things, like being 4 minutes late. I look at that as a breach of my integrity. I know it's not a huge deal, but it's one little chink. Huh?
That was me then. That was me.
No, you're okay. But, it's just next time if you say 2 p.m., maybe I'll be like, okay, I'll show up at 2:05. Just playing.
That was me. I'm getting red because my webcam technically has some sort of auto balance on where it changes my balance, and I'm tan from San Diego, so I gotta adjust that real quick. But yeah, oh no, that's the wrong way. Oh shit, whatever. Turn this down, down. All right, good. That looks good. Okay, but yeah, I know what you mean. I don't show up on time sometimes. Actually, most of the time I'm on time to my podcast. It's usually the guest who has problems, but yeah, today, I got home late. I flew in from San Diego last night. You said you're out in Vegas right now, right?
Yep.
You're in your place right now?
Yeah, just came from the gym, and then I got a doctor's appointment after this, so I got a busy day.
Busy day. So you've been working out. You told me that. You told me you're getting back into the gym life, or what?
Oh, I've been actually 2 years ago, really, almost 2 years, about a year and a half. I started with this trainer, Tiffany, and it's so much better for me to work out with a trainer, because I've worked out in the past, but when you do it on your own, you don't feel as committed. But when you make appointments with a trainer, I'm not going to bail on that integrity, right? When I realized when I was on my own working out, I'd say, okay, I'm going to work out at 11, and then I'm like, well, you know what? Let me just do this one thing real quick, and then it's 12, and I'm like, actually, I got to eat because I'm hungry, and you don't want to work out after you eat, so wait till 1, and then all of a sudden, you have excuse after excuse, and you don't go. But if I have a noon appointment, I make sure that I don't blow it. So, and it's been good because having somebody else there, your form is better, you just get more out of your workouts.
For sure. Do you have any friends that you work out with, any outside of the trainers, any male friends that you might go to the gym with, or that can kind of push you?
I work out almost every workout I work out is with my golf guy, Christian Sanchez, who's he's 5'6", 135, and he can bench 225. It's insane. So he's fun to get motivated. And then recently, Eric Wasserson, EWAS, has been coming out, and he's so freaking lazy. It's unbelievable. He comes for half the workout because the full workout's too much. And he takes excessive water breaks, and I have to motivate him. Kid's 25 years old, and he acts like a 45-year-old.
And you found he's working out with you?
He has been, yeah. The last couple times he came with me and Christian.
Do you think it's better to work out with people like that you need to push, or do you think it's better to work out with people that kind of can push you and kind of, I guess, make you kind of go harder?
No, I prefer working with people that want that are beast mode. Because I look at Christian and I have goals and I want to set, so I'm like, how many reps did he do? What weight did he do? And I want to, use him as a barometer. Mm-hmm. And Eric's just a different story. He kind of, like I said, he slows us down a little bit. but we'll
No.
speed his ass up.
So I guess we'll get into things. You know, one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on was because I met you in LA. I got to chat with you for a little while, and I feel like a lot of people out there have they have a bad impression of you, and not a bad impression of maybe some recent things that have been happening with PokerStars. I guess some of the stances you took that were more site friendly instead of player friendly. And a lot of the feedback I even got from a couple people, or I guess not a lot, but a couple people said, "Why are you having him on? Like, I don't want to hear, you know, he says the same things, yada, yada, yada. It's about PokerStars, PokerStars, PokerStars." And I'm like, no, trust me. Like, that's not, I mean, really, like, I might have thought something like that before, but really, that's not the kind of person that he is. So, I mean, you know, what would you say to those people out there that I guess, you know, feel that way about you, that feel you're very PokerStars orientated right now instead of player friendly?
I've heard it. You know, actually, I had some deep conversations with people via email, and like, you know, because some people like had some views that I was like a sellout or anything like that. And the truth is, like, for a lot of years, even way back when the World Series of Poker raised their rake and when Mirage raised their rake, I've never ever, like, honestly, I've always understood the business side of it, right? And like, I've said this in many blogs, but if you're a professional poker player, it's like owning a small business, right? And you have partners in that. You have, whether you're an online player, you have the site, you know, or if you're a live tournament player, you have the organizer and the venue. If they don't make money, right, and they're not happy, they're not getting the numbers, then you're not even going to have an opportunity to play, right? So what happened was, with this rake increase that was, you know, it was short-lived, like, I obviously wasn't happy about it. I'm not like, yes, rake increase. I knew people would be pissed about it, but there's a lot of things underneath that they didn't see. In certain regions, like, taxes have been raised to a point where it's not even feasible. Like, if you look at France, most sites, there was a bunch of sites that popped up, they bailed because they can't make a profit. They simply cannot. Winamax and PokerStars are like the only ones left. So I think the mistake that PokerStars made, personally, was making it a blanket rake increase across the board. So if you're not in a market that's affected, you get kind of screwed there too. So what they've done now is the rake is still increased, right? But now it's actually increased in the markets that have the higher taxes. So then PokerStars is splitting that tax increase 50-50 with those players. So if you live in Canada, which doesn't have that issue, you're no longer affected. So I think the mistake that was made was not necessarily increasing to cover costs, but the way in which they did it, you know, in terms of, you know, having everybody chip in to pay when it's, you know, they live in a jurisdiction that, you know, doesn't need the extra tax money.
So when they decide to do something like that, are you involved in something like that, or maybe the way that they release that information? Do they come to you for ideas in terms of, I guess, how can we make things better out there for the players?
So yeah, that's always been kind of my role with PokerStars. They, you know, they run things by me, get my input. Here's the thing. So when Amaya took over, there was a lot of, like, basically you want to make it a seamless transition as much as possible, but there's a lot of different people and different roles and stuff like that. So a lot of things fell through the cracks. And I think that, like, one of the big issues, and everyone was pissed about, was like we had 3 issues in a row that were all anti-player. You know, you had the 2.5% transaction fee, you had the rake increase, and then you had, for a lot of people, spin and goes. You know, and a lot of people didn't like that. So there was a lot thrown at the poker community all at one time, and I think they underestimated a little bit, like, how loud the voice is of the minority, which is the pros, and how much of a stink they'd make about it. So the good news is like, and you know, I was vocal about it myself, is the rake increase changed, right? Spin and goes I'm all for. You know, I'm on the other side of that. Like, I think spin and goes bring in new players, like, in big numbers. People who don't necessarily want to grind and play long, they'll play those little spin and goes, and then they might start liking the game a little bit, and then cross over into cash games. Like, that's my personal view. The way the other thing was handled, that was definitely a big, like, a blunder in terms of, you know, the 2.5% increase. That was just a terrible, you know, layout in terms of how they presented it to the public and not really being clear and honest about it. So yeah, there's no question there's fault there. But where do I stand, right? PokerStars has been, like, you know, really a beacon for the community. Like, they bailed out the full tilt players. They've, like, done a lot of good in the community. They do, like, charity events and stuff like that. Like, I stand for it being a solid company. I've met the guys at Amaya, and while there's a couple mistakes that were made, I think the company's in good hands. Like, I don't think we're headed to the sky is falling and, you know, life is over as we know it. I think a lot of people, like, freaked out a little bit too much after, you know, those first three announcements.
And I think that's definitely what happened, because they came in, they made a couple big changes back to back to back. Kind of seemed like they weren't really, like, sure what they were doing. Like, as you said, the way that they presented the changes was But since then, I have to admit, it does seem like that things are going a bit more positive. Obviously, they changed that. They changed the rake way they had it set up for places like Canada. Now they don't have to pay. But some other countries they still took a rake increase. Is that what you're saying then?
Well, what happened is taxes were increased, right? So what happens is what the PokerStars did was they split the taxes with the players. So 50% of that tax increase was on behalf of the players had to cover, and PokerStars covered the other half of it. Mm-hmm. But the other thing I want to say is that a lot of the changes that were made, like really quickly in concession after Amaya, were already in place to happen. Spin and Goes, I did an ad for Spin and Goes well before Amaya took over. I did like a voiceover for it, and I was actually really enthused about the idea. I thought it was a great idea. I guess I know a lot of Hyper Turbo players don't love it, but yeah, a lot of the stuff that was implemented was already in talks before Amaya took over.
And what about the casino?
Casino for sure, which is interesting because obviously Vicky Corrin has a very different view on it than I do. And I was in a room with her, I would say almost 2 years ago, when the discussion of potentially like adding casino to the offerings was there, and she had slightly different view of it then than she does now. But and again, I don't hate on people for that, but like I look at it this way: if you could if let's say for example right now you could buy a piece of a casino, would you be morally against buying a piece of a casino? Like if Bellagio said you can buy 2%, we're going to let you in, would you be morally opposed to making money off of the fact that many people there are going to be making big mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be blowing their load. Would you be opposed to it? And like I asked myself that question, I'm like, no. I mean, that sounds like a great deal,
Well, I mean, I guess from your standpoint, it probably seems like a good deal. But I know to a lot of people out there, they're worried that all the fun players or the fish, as some people call them, they're gonna. So instead of going to play these games, the mid-stakes, high-stakes games, or even small-stakes games, now they're gonna go play the casino. And my kind of view on it has been that I think I feel like people might just play casino games and then also at some point in time venture over into cash games too. I think it kind of works both ways at some point in time. Maybe not initially, but as people start learning that PokerStars has casino games, it could end up kind of going that way.
Yeah, personally, I'm not big on the casino game thing, whatever, I can take it or leave it. But what I think is really a cool opportunity is the sports betting, right? If they can partner up or create software that rivals the best sports betting sites in the world, like think about how much crossover you have there. Like guys who bet sports, like I remember way back when I played online as a grinder, the best sites to play on were like WSEX, sites that had sports books, because those guys would have their sportsbook wallet, they made money, and in the meantime they'd play poker, right? Because it's already there. So I think the goal, right, the overriding goal for PokerStars is to create something so large, right, where it's a one-stop shop. These people that are going to play casino games, they're going to find them and play them anywhere. The difference is if they play them at PokerStars and they bet their sports at PokerStars, their wallet is at PokerStars. They don't have to make a transfer over, right? So they're more likely to play poker there. So the fear is that the poker players are going to do this. If poker players want to gamble on stuff, they're going to find it. It's already available. So I think it just makes sense to make it a one-stop shop. This could potentially grow hugely the number of, whatever you want to call them, bad players, recreational players that actually cross over to poker. That's what I believe. It could be a strategy that fails miserably, but I think for the players, if they look at it from that perspective, the potential of having better games is there if it works.
I guess so. Epicurus in the chat. So guys, we are live streaming this. If you guys got any questions, comments, you can leave them in the chat. I'll reference some of them along the way. Epicurus says, "What about the statement from the Amaya CEO saying that he would like poker to represent less than 25% or something of their revenue from stars in a few years?" So I guess it looks like they want to go more. They want to make more of their money from casinos and less from poker. Does that mean poker is potentially doom? I don't say doom's not quite the word, but is it, are they going to start trying? Like, what do you see happening with that?
Okay, so I met with this guy Bazov, right? He thinks big. Okay, he was running like a $20 million company 2 years ago, and he said, "I'm going to buy PokerStars." Everyone laughed at him, right? He's this guy that really dreams big. So when he says, poker was going to represent 20-25% of the overall revenue stream, that doesn't mean that poker will be smaller than it is now, right? He has visions that are big. He has verticals that he wants to take, not just casino and sports. Like, I'm not going to divulge what other areas that he wants to get into, but he's looking to grow the brand in a massive way. And for it to, like, when it comes to social media, it comes to like a lot of different verticals, not just poker, sports, and casino. So he's thinking like super big, right? Like massively big, because the company's already big, but he wants to make it 5 times bigger. And part of the way he wants to do that is to venture out into different verticals. But that doesn't mean that poker being 25% represents a smaller number of people playing at all. It actually most likely will grow. If again, this is all hinging on if his master plan works.
Well, I guess in a way we all kind of have to hope his master plan works, because it seems like it would benefit me, it benefit you, it benefit everyone like kind of watching that plays on Stars. So I mean it. Hopefully, it obviously with the U.S. The potential New Jersey. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about that, but there's some speculation Stars might be in New Jersey sooner than later. So that means
there's been speculation of that for a little while now. I've heard many firm dates like October 15th. It's happening. And so it's just weird. It's like the political battle in the United States is a complete mess. You have one group, Sheldon Adelson, who talks about this moral stand that he has, which is complete bull, as everyone knows, right? Just a weird dude, that Sheldon Adelson. He's just got a bone to pick with online poker. So he's creating like a major barrier for a lot of So that's why it's actually cool with the coalition of MGM and PokerStars and everybody else kind of like putting together a group that can maybe stand up to the money that Sheldon's spending. Because you know how politicians work. It's as simple as, money. I'm for online gambling. Oh, how much? I'm anti-online gambling. You know what I mean? Their integrity and moral compass is based upon who's paying the biggest price to win their vote.
All right, we can talk enough about the whole entire those subjects. Those are kind of the ones that I think people wanted me to maybe get to right away. We can try to find some more fun things to talk about. But okay, I know recently you're getting in some Twitter beef. I don't know if it's a beef. It's a discussion. You're in a Twitter discussion lately, and it has to do with the whole entire tanking that happens in the live tournaments. I know you've been pretty for a shot clock in tournaments, and I feel like that's been a success in the ones it's worked at. No, you said you shook your head. No, you're not for the shot clock, or?
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, I think it'd be a cool, novel idea. Like occasionally, let's say the World Series of Poker has a 1,500 shot clock event or something like that. But I don't think we need to go towards a shot clock completely. What I typically do when I play is I sit down and I tell everyone, okay, here's my rule. I'm going to give everybody one free tank. You take as long as you like, right? And after that point, if you pass 2 minutes, I'm going to call the clock at 2 minutes. That gives you 3 minutes per decision. It's plenty of time to make a decision. Now, if they continue to breach that, I'll make it shorter, right? To the point where maybe after 30 seconds I call it. So Jordan Christos, I know from a couple years ago at the WSOP Europe, he was tanking. A lot of people were complaining. And I think the problem with him was he was tanking in mundane situations, like under the gun, first act, and he'd go into a tank for like 45 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. That's just excessive, right? I've talked to him since, and actually the whole thing has come full circle. Like, I think we've gotten to a place where we found common ground. And from what I heard from Christian Parter, and a bunch of others, he's playing much faster now. So he's making an effort, and that's all I really wanted is like, make an effort. If you have 7 deuce off in middle position and the guy raises under the gun, and you know you're going to fold, don't take 45 seconds to do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the stuff that, and if you do that, right, if you stop wasting that 30 seconds, 40 seconds, when you want to tank, you'll get that respect, right? But if you're always taking 45 seconds for every decision, when you actually need to tank, you're going to get clock called on you way more often. And it's in everyone's best interest. If you're a professional player, imagine this. Like, one of the examples I used was, if everyone took 10 minutes to make every decision, right? Literally, think about that. Which, feasible, right? Under the gun, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. You get 2-3 hands a level. That's an extreme example, I know, right? But if everyone did that, it would completely destroy the game. No one would want to play, and the structure would suck. So on a smaller scale, when you're taking way too much time, you're disrespecting, well, actually, you're hurting your overall EV. Because you're getting less hands in, right? And this is how it all started, because he talked about the structure being too fast at the final table. And I'm like, well, one easy fix is hurry up. If you play faster, you'll get more hands per hour. So I'm glad that we had the discussion, because I think it got to a good place. And like I talked to him privately about it, and he seems to get it,
I think you're just making the case for online poker. Online poker being a fun place to play. I don't think I've taken 45 seconds on a decision in 5 years. So I mean, that's I couldn't imagine having that much time for a decision. That sounds pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know some. I think so. I remember during the poker conference out there in LA, I just want you to do the impression again that you did there, because that was the funniest impression. You said something about tanking kind of started when Tom Dwan showed up on TV, and he was.
Yeah. The thing about tanking is it became cool, right? And it became cool because Tom Dwan was on High Stakes Poker, and he was a phenom, and everyone loved his game, and he was making some sick plays and whatever. So people wanted to mimic Tom, right? And Tom was like, like slow betting and like really take tanking, and ever since then, the young players who've come from the online world, they feel like I want to mask my tells. I don't want to give away any information. So they started to like emulate what Tom does. And now Tom finds tanking annoying because he's like, I've talked to him about it. He's like, he feels bad about what he did. But that's where it started. That was the root of it. So I think ideally what we need to do is change that conversation and not make tanking seem like something that's cool, right? Because it's really not. You know, it's just selfish in a sense.
Yeah, I feel like
Like
after
in golf, I never use this example, but in golf, right? There's a shot clock in golf, right? It's not like it's basically you can call the clock on somebody. But all the pro golfers understand, okay, there's a certain amount of time that I have to take for the shot. Obviously, more time could help them. Maybe if the wind's blowing, they could just sit there and wait 4 or 5 minutes, right? But it's just like a common understanding that there's only so much time you can take. And if you take too much time, you can get passed or you can get like a penalty or something like that. So the same is true in poker. It's really kind of a respect thing. Where if you're taking up too much time, I'm not getting as many hands in if I'm at your table.
You know, you just actually, I think you might have inspired a new segment on the podcast because we love doing Jungle Man impressions, but now we might have a new segment called the Tom Dwan impression where we each guest that comes on, we have them do a Tom Dwan impression. So you might have just inspired a new thing. What did you think about the poker conference and the poker awards that was out in Los Angeles?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, I didn't attend the entire conference. I spoke on the panel for the players and stuff like that. But I thought the award ceremony was really cool. It was like kind of like our Oscars and stuff like that. And it really was like, it was cool seeing poker players wearing suits, not flip-flops and, T-shirts and stuff. And I thought it just kind of like elevated, the importance of these kind of things. I don't know. I just felt like a really fun night where we could really discuss where poker's going and, honor people who have made achievements. I know Dan Coleman has a very different view on this kind of stuff, and he didn't show up because he doesn't believe in creating idols or something like that. I can't remember exactly how he says it, but like he doesn't believe in rewarding individual achievements in life. He's more like, I would say more like a communist view on, everyone's the same and not to glorify poker players who do well at stuff. So he didn't show up, but he's a very opinionated kid. He reminds me not of myself exactly, but his willingness to speak his mind I actually respect a lot, even though I disagree with a lot of what he has to say.
Interesting. Do you feel like he really speaks his mind often? I mean, a couple of times over the past maybe 8 months, but I think for the most part, he doesn't really talk much at all.
He's passionately opinionated. He's passionate. Like if you see on Twitter and stuff like that, when he talks about like the conflict in the Gaza Strip or other things like, a lot on that. That's obviously something he's really passionate about. He's very sure of himself. I think he took exception to something that I said in my blog that I actually still stand by, and I think he should understand that it's just true. I said when he's 30 years old, he's going to see the world differently than when he does now. And he made a comment to the effect of like, I know who I am, I know what I'm about, I'm pretty secure in myself. And then I look back, I'm like, okay, when you were 17 and you were cheating online, by playing multi-accounting and playing 2 seats of a sit and go, like you wouldn't do that now, right? So your psyche and your mind has changed in that 7 to 8 years. So what makes you think that in the next 5 to 7 years you won't continue to evolve, gain more wisdom, and see the world differently further? And he was kind of he didn't see that quite clearly, but I think it's an obvious truth. The older you get, the more likely it is you're just going to see things differently. Not necessarily better or worse, but it's naive to think that at 25 you're going to have the same view of the world as when you're 40.
So he took offense to you saying that? He disagreed that he would see things differently as he got older?
Well, essentially what I was not being condescending at all. As part of what I said is like he's young, right? In a lot of the things that he did and the way he handled it, and like I said, he's young and he's likely to see things differently as he gets older. And he tweeted out something to the effect of, despite what me and Lon McCarran think, like I very much know who I am. And I'm like, yeah, I get you know who you are, but you're going to change. You're not going to be the same man in 5 years, right? And it seems pretty obvious.
I mean, I feel like how old are you? How old are you now? Kid poker? How old are you? 24? How old are you right now?
Big 4-0, bro. Yeah.
40 years old?
Yeah. Feeling good though. Best shape of my life. Feeling sexy.
Feeling sexy. Oh well, I guess you. I was gonna. No, I forgot what I was gonna say. You started talking about being sexy. You got me thinking about. I know a lot of people out there wondering. What kind of what's your dating life like these days? You had like a semi popular relationship with a woman in poker. And then, but what have you been up to since then? Are you on the around here on the podcast? We're all about the big girl grind. I think I told you about that actually when I met you. I said 160, big girl grind, 160 or above. We show you love. 160 or below, gotta go.
Yeah, I don't do the big girl grind. It's definitely not my grind. Yeah.
What do you mean? Why not? You working out? You're at the gym. You're meeting some fit women. You don't.
Well, you were talking the big girl grind.
The big girl grind, yeah, 160.
I'm not into the big girls. I'm more into like the under 160. What is that one? Definitely under 160. I've never dated a girl that big. 140, 142 is probably the biggest girl I dated, and she was 6 foot.
6 foot, 142?
Yeah.
You need to get her put on about 20 more pounds, then she can qualify for the big girl grind.
She has put on 20 pounds. This was a long time ago.
Bang, bang. So wait, what's your dating life like these days? I mean, I'd imagine for you, a social guy, you talk to everyone. You know, you've had some success, you know, a large level of success at things you do. I feel like women would be like kind of very interested in and maybe going out with you in a dating type of setting. What's it like for you, man?
Well, last year, from January till about November, I was dating a girl for like, I don't know, what is that? That's 11 months? Shit, that was a long time. Yeah, right about 11 months I was dating a girl. Super sweet girl. We're still friends. She's great. She was a little on, well, she's younger than me. She was 25. Not that I care. I really don't care about age. But she's the sweetest girl I've ever met in my entire life. Most loving woman ever. But I don't know. I felt like there was a few disconnects from an intellectual perspective, and I really like, you know, that's important to me. So I have a friend who I was friends with for like years, who I met actually when I did Choice Center, and her and I, like, we have a great friendship, and we always had. So in the last couple months, we decided to give it a shot, take it to the next level, and see how that works. So we kind of experimented with that a little bit to see how that pans out. And so I don't know. I'm kind of in a unique place when it comes to that stuff. Like, I look at it this way. I've been married once. If I get married and have kids, I'm going to be happy. If I get married and don't have kids, I'm going to be happy. If I don't get married and don't have kids, I'm going to be happy. Like my happiness isn't hinging upon it. So I don't really have any set plans in terms of, you know, I'm going to have kids. I'm not looking for it. I'm not desperate at all. I'm very open to just going with the flow when it comes to that stuff.
Mm. So you might have just also brought up a new phrase, which is the young girl grind. We didn't think about the YGG. We don't really gotta write that one down. So we got the tall. You're into the tall girl grind. We've established that.
No, I'm not.
Well, a 6 foot and beyond, we got a bond. Would be.
That was a section. That was an exception. The 6 footer.
Oh, okay. It's not a. Oh, okay.
No, I usually like the little tiny ones. Little tiny blondes or not blondes.
Or girls with pink hair potentially.
Oh, pink hair works. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta give I was gonna give a couple shout outs, but we got too many people out there today. Poppies, I'll give you guys shout outs later, I promise. I'll get to the shout outs at some point in time. AJ Phoenix, give you a shout out, man. That's about it. You saw like you've been blogging a lot more lately. You've been writing a bit more blogs. Do you have any intention on video blogging more, on kind of doing the Twitch thing potentially? I mean, you have any, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I started doing the written blogs again because, to be honest, like, I switched computers and it got updated, my Windows, and it's just more confusing. So the video blog, I'm just not all that tech savvy. So doing the video blogs was just like more of a hassle, I felt like. You know, I just want to get my point across, so I'd write them. As for Twitch, I definitely I'm going to probably start doing that. I live in Vegas, so my first thought is maybe do something on like the .net where I do some play money stuff, or maybe like, you know, I don't know. I'm going to look into what prizes I can give away, like legally, because, you know, I don't want to cross any lines. And once I figure that out, maybe I'll do some fun promotions like around that. And then when I'm outside the country, you know, do some Twitch grinds. Because I watch some adjacent stuff, and I think it's a cool way to, like, you know, reach a totally different demographic.
Yeah, what do you think about what Jason Somerville's doing with Run It Up, and now he's PokerStars Pro? He's streaming for 70 days straight, I believe. That's what do you?
He's working hard. You know, he hung around with me for a while when he first started coming into poker, and was like watching me and learning from me, and like I wouldn't say mentor, but like a lot of times I would guide him. And one of the first things I told him is, like, when I got started, way back when I was in my early 20s, I used to answer about 100 emails a day from people, like personal emails where people would ask me about hands, ask me about bankroll questions and all that, and I would spend 3-4 hours a day just answering emails, just at a very grassroots level, you know, and then created like a following, and it grew from there. And so he took that a step further by doing this through Twitch at a very grassroots level, and it's grown into something massive. He gets like 10,000 people watching now, right? So he's like the perfect example of, what it takes now to get a sponsorship deal. Like a lot of people whine about like, how come I don't have a deal? I'm way better than this guy. Irrelevant, completely irrelevant. If a company's going to put a patch on you, right? They want to know how much value are you bringing to us. They don't care how good you are. If you don't bring in people and they create revenue off you, why would they pay you any money? So it's changed. There was a golden era where everyone was getting these big contracts. It was like, gee, here's 300,000, here's 400,000 to do nothing but wear a patch. Those days are gone because I think the company, and a lot of it was my suggestion, because I feel like there was a lot of money being spent and wasted on just people that didn't bring in a lot of revenue. A guy like Ronaldo, when he makes a deep run in the PCA, that's valuable because he's hitting a totally new demographic, right? When an online player anyone who knows who he is already has an account, like gets signed, unless he's bringing added value in another way, he doesn't bring in much value because he's not bringing in new customers. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So just changing the way in which that works makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, I think that's why Stars and I guess Full Tilt, they didn't purposely drop players from their roster, but I guess they dropped players anyway. Stars dropped a lot of guys because they were like, I think a lot of people didn't see the value that a lot of these people brought in. Like, I don't understand who's signing up for, I don't want to name any names, Dale Rue, but certain people, I don't see like who they're signing up to play on Star. You know what I mean? And it seems like Stars is kind of almost rectifying that in a way.
Yes, and again, like that's something that they definitely consult me on, and it was definitely something I talked about as doing it more like basketball. Like if you look at a basketball team, on a basketball team you have 3-4 guys who make ridiculous amounts of money, and then the rest of the team is more like league minimum, right? The way PokerStars contracts were set up was a lot more middle ground, right? And I think it makes sense to have like, the people that bring in the most value get a lot, and then the rest here. But then add a whole new spectrum of people that are not necessarily poker pros, but guys like Ronaldo, which I think are ideal, to wear the patch, or Sergio Garcia, or people that are celebrities in different, venues or whatever that can bring people into poker. There's not a lot of value in for example, when Tom Dwan was looking to sign, right? Everyone who knew who Tom Dwan was essentially already played poker online, right? For the most part, all his fan base was already there. So the question is, how much value does he bring? He brings some in terms of retention, like people want to watch him play and they want him to be there. But what about like bringing in new revenue? You have to look at that from both sides. So I remember Tom's view of how much he was worth in terms of a deal was quite high versus what I felt like he could bring in terms of value, in terms of actual revenue.
I guess, how do you think you bring in revenue then? How do you think you add that much value to the company?
Well, I mean, my role's more than just playing like as a team pro, because again, like I consult with them on different types of things in terms of the poker world, like this rake issue and spin and goes and all the stuff. I'm like a conduit for that. But in terms of how I bring in value, I try to do a lot of media outside of poker, like this NHL push. I did a lot of interviews and stuff that wouldn't have come to me from just poker through that. And I did shows like Millionaire Matchmaker. Try to do as much mainstream stuff. Yeah. I try to do as much mainstream stuff as possible.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That was fucking awesome, by the way.
Thank you, sir. Did you see the other guy? The other guy was really funny because he had a boat that he named Morning Wood, right? And the best part of it was like he took her out on the boat and he couldn't get the boat up.
Okay, guys, so for those who don't know what we're talking about, okay, Daniel was on a show called Millionaire Matchmaker, which is on the Bravo network, and it's this woman, Patty, who has these millionaire guys or women come in, and then she tries to match them up with women, and you went on the show, which was awesome. And what was that experience like being on this reality show?
It was fun. I had a blast. I'll be honest. Like, so, you tell them what you're looking for, you give them sort of an idea, right? And then I opened the doors and I looked and I was like, what? This is not what I was like. Wasn't my genre, if you will. But he had his different selection. But luckily there was one girl there that I thought was attractive and stuff, and she's the first one that came up to me, and she's really cool. Like, we dated for probably 3 months. We had a blast. Like, when the cameras were off, we had even more fun. She's really fun. She was like, she was 23, a little young. I was probably 38 or something at the time. But yeah, like, it was during the series, right after I shot the show, and then the World Series of Poker came up. Not the best time to start dating somebody, because she'd come out a couple times and it'd be like, yeah, I'm busy, I'm grinding,
Yeah.
But she's super cool. She's actually just had a baby, with she's dating one of the guys on the Chargers. I don't know which one, but I don't watch football. But no, she was super cool. It was a fun experience, you know.
Yeah.
They've asked me to go back on there, but I don't know. I feel like I did pretty good on my first one. I don't necessarily want to go in and screw it up. Like I knew going in that Patty was a ball breaker, right? Luckily, the other guy was like so douchey that he made me look good, right? But I also knew like whatever she said, I just got to listen. She made me see like one of them numerologists, right? Who are like, yeah. She made me do that. So I was like, I just listened. I didn't like, I did what I was supposed to do. I just listened.
Did you tell her you like the young girls? Is that what you told her when you went in there? You go, I like girls under.
He asked for age, and I said I don't care. Like it doesn't matter. I don't care. Like I don't. It's not even a. It doesn't matter to me as long as they're legal. You know what I mean? I'm like.
Yeah. All right, guys, we got a new motto: young girl grind, as long as they're legal, baby. That's the. Hold on, I write this one down. Okay.
Okay.
As long as they're legal, young girl grind. All right, we. Wow, this might be the new big girl grind, young girl grind now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about the revenue, right? Okay, how do you bring stars and revenue? So you do things like that. So by you being on that show, do you think more people see you on there, realize, oh, somebody plays poker for a living and they want to play poker? I mean, so how do you think that correlates with doing things like that?
So the goal is, anytime you do TV or you do interviews or you do news shows or whatever, you're trying to get some crossover appeal, right? So you're trying to like build your own, whatever you want to call it, brand, so that people like identify you as a poker guy, and then when they see you, you're wearing the Poker Stars patch, and then they wonder, okay, what's that, right? And then you do, I've done commercials and I've done ads and stuff like that where we promote it, and of course, I do a lot of TV shows, like recently did Shark Cage and poker-centric stuff, and try to make the broadcast fun and increase the ratings and make the webcasts, have more people watch them and stuff like that. So I do what I can. Like I don't work. I would certainly say that I don't do as much as I used to in terms of reaching out, especially because in the United States right now there's not a lot of there's not a real market for it right now, because you can't really send people online. So it's kind of like in a holding pattern until we get regulated.
Do you think that there's almost a value in, I mean, maybe keeping it up as like not completely just not focusing on the USA, which I think that's what's happened for the most part. Is just nothing's really in the USA at all because they can't really play online. So do you think there's any value at some point in time, if it came back, just to have it kept up, like been keeping up with getting your name out there and stuff like that?
Yeah, for new players, like, if you're a young kid, let's say, a lot of young guys are like, I want to get a deal with Stars or whatever. If you live in the U.S., you're pretty limited. Like, I'm not going to lie, like, at this point, creating a brand and trying to, like, make a name for yourself isn't going to have a lot of value unless you work as hard as a kid like Jason Somerville did, where you see the sacrifice that he had to make was he was doing all this work, getting paid nothing. He was thinking about the bigger picture, like the possibility of something bigger. A lot of young players don't see it that way, or they miss that step. They don't realize that in order to get something, you have to sacrifice. When I first did shows for WPT, did them for free. I did all that stuff for free because I was looking to create something bigger for myself, right? I saw a bigger vision, like Jason. Too many young guys, they look at a problem like this. So like Poker News will come and say, can we do an interview with you on the break? 3 minutes. And they'll think of it like this. Okay, what's my ROI on this interview, right? So like, what is the chances that this is going to come back and actually add up to dollars? And then they'll do the math, and if it doesn't make sense for them financially in that moment, they're like, no, right? Not seeing the bigger picture where maybe you sacrifice a little bit for the greater good for all. Because really, it's only a 2-3 minute inconvenience. I get it. If they're asking you to do like a 3-hour, coaching session and you're going to give away a lot of your secrets, hell no. If you don't feel like it's going to be something that you profit from in the long run, I don't blame you for not doing it. Like Scott Seaver is a perfect example. PokerStars often asks him to do, commentary on the webcast. He doesn't want to. Because he's like, I'm not getting paid. I don't see myself getting a deal. So why would I give away all my secrets? I have no problem with that. But if you do want to get somewhere where you're going to like profit from that angle, then you're going to have to make some sacrifices and be willing to do that.
I think that might also tie into why that when you think about what a poker star is, like somebody who's super well known. Obviously, back in the day, with more things on Television USA, we had a lot of stars on TV. Obviously, a lot of those people aren't even around anymore in poker. They don't play poker, or they haven't had success. But there hasn't been that replacement stars sort of come. Like, what do you think can be done, if anything, to build up more people? Maybe not to get to quite the level you're at, but to get to a level where they can, I guess, maybe make a difference.
Well, I think Alex Dreyfus is heading in the right direction, and so is Jason Somerville. I think so one of the big drawbacks of putting shows on television in the United States is the broadcasting costs. It's expensive. People don't get how much it costs per hour to put on a WPT final table. So the future is online. More and more people are watching sport, e-gaming online, video gaming and stuff like that. So I think, what Alex Dreyfus is doing with like the Global Poker Masters and stuff like that is creating a cult following of people who watch it online. And that cuts costs dramatically. You don't have the overhead of getting it on, because networks are not paying for poker. They never were before. They were always funded by sites who had a back-end model, where it's like, we're using this as an advertising model. How do you put a poker show on TV now? Where's your revenue stream? It's just like, you can do it, but you're going to lose money on it. And there's not a lot of people that are like, oh, this sounds great. I'm going to lose how much? Right? So I think online, like the Twitch is a great way now to create a following. Like, it's available to everyone, and I see more and more young guys like Jonathan Little, Dutch Boyd, that kid Ryan LaPlante, like they're all getting into that. That's a way of creating stars and a following. And Jason does a really good job of making his both informative and entertaining from what I've seen.
Yeah, I just wanted back to what you said about Alex Dreyfus and the Poker Awards. I didn't say anything about the awards because we got onto a different topic, but I thought the awards was really, really awesome. It was much cooler and much more fun than I expected it to be, and it was really. I really hope that continues because, like, it's so rare you have everyone in the community kind of like one place, and I wouldn't say everyone, but you have a ton of people from the community in one place. You can meet people, talk to people. Everyone's dressed up, as you said. All the poker playing women are in dresses. All the guys, except Brandon Shack Harris, who wore his normal outfit he wears every single day, they're dressed up pretty nicely. I just thought the whole entire experience was great. The venue at Beverly Hills was great, and yeah, I gotta definitely show a lot of love for that because I think that was a great idea.
It was way more fun than I thought it was going to be too. Like I wasn't sure what to expect, but it was classy. There was a dinner. It was laid out really well. They came up with some unique kind of awards that they could give away, and it was cool. I don't know. I liked it. We had something like that years ago. Calvin Ayre did one in LA. Card Player sponsored it, sort of Calvin Ayre with Bodog. But and that was cool too. But it had been many years since we had anything like that in the United States.
Yeah, you won a couple awards. You won Best Ambassador, I believe.
Yeah, that'd be it.
Only one. I felt like you won two. I guess you only did one.
Yeah, I was only up for one.
Oh man, I like the awards. That was a lot of fun. I gotta say,
yeah,
that was fun. What was the? Now I remember. Now I remember what it was. The online challenge you were talking about doing, and there was some speculation from some friends of mine, Doug Polk, WCG writer. I think Jason Moe might have said something about it too. So 25-50. What was the bet? You lay it out for us that you were thinking about.
Okay, so this thing was blown out of proportion to like a new level, and it all started with there was some guy on Twitter, right? I don't even know who he was. He sent me some comment. He was like talking crap or whatever. So I sent an @reply to him. It wasn't a tweet saying, "Hello world, I would like to do this challenge where I play 25-50 and da-da-da," right? It was me saying to the guy, because he was asking, like, if I thought I could beat it. And my answer was, yes, I believe, right, that if I put in the work, and I said 2 weeks, and that's what really created a lot of controversy, because clearly, most people believe that's not nearly enough, and they could be right. Like, I'm not saying it's a guarantee that I'd win, but of course I believe I could, right? I don't believe it's impossible. I believe I'm both capable, and if I put in the work, and whether it was getting coaching or like, just dissecting my game and, getting in good games and all those things. I didn't understand at the time the seat scripting issue, and that's something that actually has been like a new passion for me with PokerStars and trying to find ways to address that because it's a real problem,
Great.
But, I mean, it was not something that I was looking to actively do because here's the thing. So this wasn't a challenge I said to myself that I want to do. I said I believe I could, right? But it wasn't something I want to because there's not a lot of incentive. First of all, I have to leave the country to do that, and I love my home. I love my life, right? I don't need the money, right? I've got plenty of that. So there wasn't a lot of incentive for me to do that, right? So maybe I probably shouldn't have threw it out there, but I wasn't like I was throwing it out there, to the world. I was throwing it out to one specific dude, but then I forgot, oh yeah, it's Twitter, it's social media, it's going to blow up. So then he posted it online, and everyone's like, what? No way, D-Neg sucks. Did you watch High Stakes Poker? He's such a fish. I'm like, yes, I remember. I was on the damn show for many years. So that's how it started. It was not like me actively looking for one, but if I found parameters of a bet that made sense and was something I wanted to do that was very short term, I'd be open to it. I'd be open to taking on the challenge, and if I lose, I lose. I'm not saying I'm guaranteeing I'm winning, but I certainly don't think I'm drawing dead. Some people could have me at 10%. I've got myself at maybe, I don't know, I don't know what percent, but more than 10.
What percent? What percent do you put it at?
It depends on the structure of it, right? So, for example, if we just had one session, you know, I put it well way over. I put it at like 65. But if it was like 50,000 hands, it'd be a lot lower. And it would also depend on what kind of games that we attracted and whether or not it was Zoom or, you know, how the bet was laid out in terms of what would I have to do, how would it work, like, do I have to just win $1 to win the bet, or would I have to win a certain amount of big blinds per hour? You know, I didn't have any like real deep discussions about, you know, structuring how the bet would work, because I just don't really want to do it that more. So I probably, in fairness, like I acknowledge, I should probably just shut my mouth on it and just be like, okay, whatever, I'm not going to do it. So, you know, maybe I can't do it, but I believe I can. Like, how can I not say that if it's true? I really do believe I can. I know most people laugh at me when I say that, but what do you want me to say? Like, that's what I really believe. I really believe that if I worked hard, that I could do it.
What about a PLO challenge online? We'd love to see you over at PLO, man. PLO is a fun place. 4 cards. You know about PLO. It's a great game.
I know a lot about PLO. PLO actually suits my game really, really well. PLO was responsible, though, when I first, years ago, like a lot of people don't know this, but before I was a tournament player or whatever, I grinded cash games. And around 2000, I'd say the year 2000, I went broke, basically, after having a $300,000 bankroll. Spent the year drinking and firing 2 and 400, 3 and 600 and not caring. By the end of the year, then I started getting staked for a little while. By 2002, 2003,
how do you get a stake? You're firing away at, how do you get a stake?
Well, after that, when I was like, oops, when I went broke, like I found a way to get staked. So anyway, by 2002, 2003, I want to say, I built up a bankroll just from cash games, playing on my own. I was playing 4 and 8,000. I was playing on my own money, and I'd had like, at that point, I don't know, like a $2-3 million bankroll before the poker boom. So then, how was it, July of one year? I don't know.
What games are you playing in? How do you just build up a 2? What is?
I started playing 2 and 400, 3 and 600, 4 and 800. Then literally 8-16, 1 and 2,000, 15 and 3, 2 and 4. And then I took a partner to play 4 and 8,000, and I was playing half for half. And then I started playing 4 and 8,000 on my own. Then I had one big, like, really bad session, and I want to tell you about this because it's kind of interesting. So it was PLO. We were playing the mixed game, and in the mixed game, we used to play 1 and 2,000 blinds with a 100K cap, right? So it's 50 bigs. It's not very deep. And people were pretty bad at 50 big blind PLO cap because they were just folding way too much after the flop. But Sammy started playing the game once, and I was actually up 300,000, and I remember being stuck 200. And Sammy sat down in the game, and he wanted to make. He said when he straddles, that the PLO cap goes to 150,000, right? So I never really played 75 blind cap. So he was straddling, and I remember like I was playing terrible. Like I really wasn't very bad at the game, not realizing it. And I lost like 1.3 million. It was my biggest loss ever, and that one stung, right? Because PLO is very swingy as is, right? And if you're playing badly, it's easy to get buried. So I mean, I still was way ahead, obviously, you know, overall. But I remember after that, like I really kind of pulled away because I didn't want to go broke. I mean, I had money at that point. I wasn't going to blow it all. Mm-hmm. But that was my first foray into like that form of PLO. But since then, I fell in love with the game in a lot of ways and feel like it really suits my style pretty well. It wasn't all PLO. It was a mixed game, but it was just the PLO that I was getting buried in the most.
I don't think you played much online on Stars, have you? At PLO, maybe.
You know what? I looked at my results and was shocked because PLO is in the 8-game mix, and I always crushed that game. And I realized part of the reason is because of PLO. I'm actually doing really good online on PokerStars and PLO. I'm stuck in no limit overall, but I'm up pretty good in PLO, like a pretty good chunk.
Do you have any?
And I won the 5K PLO 6 max on the Scoop like 2 years ago, I think. I don't know, with all the geniuses and regs. I think the game just makes sense to me. It really suits me because so much is like post-flop dependent, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I would say like compared to No Limit Hold'em, where there's your technical skills pre-flop matter so much more, where PLO.
I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, the meaty decisions are made post-flop. Like, you get 3-bet, you're like, so what? You call. You're getting the right price to call. Where in No Limit, you're like, I'm out of position, I can't play. But PLO, big deal, 3-bet me, so what? I'm still going to see the flop, you know?
That was actually when I first started playing PLO. I would always hate folding your 3-bets at No Limit. And then when you play PLO, you never have to fold to a 3-bet. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm calling everything. And that was...
I love it.
Do you have any intention on playing any potential PLO online in the future?
Yeah, if I'm online, you know, like I said, if I'm not... When I'm in the United States, I'm not playing, obviously. And when I'm on the road, I kind of like it. Actually, you know what I started doing just for fun was I was playing, the last couple times I've been on the road, I played about 10,000 hands of 1-2 6 max No Limit Hold'em online. like 1-2 blinds, just to see how I would do. And I was like, my plan is to, win a certain number of, buy-ins there and then move up and see how, because I want to do it the right way, not just like, I could just jump into the big games. It's not about the money, but I wanted to just get a sense, because I really am out of touch in a lot of ways with what lower limit games were like. And one of the things I was surprised about is like, back when I used to play 1-2, it would be really easy. But now they're like good players in that game. Like it was not, I still felt like the regs were very predictable and easy to beat. And I'm up, but I definitely was surprised at how much tougher it was than I expected.
Have you tried playing any low stakes PLO online?
I just played high stakes, pretty much PLO.
Yeah.
I like to just fire. When you play PLO, you're in that mood where you just want to gamble. Like, I'm just going to play high. I'll play whoever. I don't care.
Well, have you read anything about the PLO rake, which I know is a really big discussion over in the PLO forums on 2+2, for example, that a lot of 50-cent dollar and below, the rake eats up so much of the win rates that there's not many players actually winning at those stakes. Before.
Yeah, I know that's an issue that I definitely should get more informed on, because I've heard a little bit about it in the sense that the PLO rake is much higher than no limit, but I don't know enough to speak to it intelligently at this point. I know maybe I'll check it out. If you send me a link or something, I'll take a look and see what's actually happening.
I think the basic argument is that the rake is the same in the games, I believe, but you hit the cap way more often at PLO. You're going 5 players to the flop at PLO, so the rake's always being the cap's always being hit at these stakes. And what happens is that they posted some information. Yeah, they posted information that there's really not many players. It's just so hard to move up. If you say you're an aspiring player and you're playing 10 cent, 25 cent PLO, yeah, it's just so hard for you to actually move up and build a bankroll because the rake is just crushing you. And that's pretty much is the big thing that, whether it's going to get fixed anyway, I don't know if it can get fixed really.
Send me a link to whatever it is that someone's intelligence spoke about the issue, because I've heard very little about it. I don't know a lot, but I'd like to take a look closer at the numbers and what's actually happening. And if it's a big major imbalance, then maybe there's something we can do to fix it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely send that over to you. And it'd be I think they have the PokerStars meetings with the representatives, and I know a couple people may have spoke about that before. But nothing's changed. So, I guess that's kind of what we're in the PLO community. That's kind of what we're going for. We want to see that maybe rectified, just to give people a better chance to move up. Because I think right now, would you agree or disagree that if you were starting at poker, would you say people start at no limit, or would you say that people start at playing PLO?
Well, clearly people start at no limit. I think PLO's. Why would people start, or why should they?
So let's say someone was like, I want to get good at poker. I want to become a professional poker player. Would you say they start at no limit, where I guess
should they start at? You mean?
What?
What should they start, or what do they typically start at?
What should they start?
To be honest, I'm an old school guy like that, so I typically start with limit hold'em, because I find limit hold'em is a really great way to just learn the fundamentals of poker, and then I would go from there to no limit, and then PLO, because I think once you understand hold'em on a basic level, it's easier to understand PLO. I think PLO is a starting point as the first game. It's kind of complicated, I think, for people. It seems a little bit more difficult. So I would probably start with limit or no limit hold'em.
I actually think you're right. Obviously I should say PLO. I'm a PLO fucking guy, but I think limit hold'em is actually the place to start. Weirdly enough, I actually agree with you on that. I never thought about that, because that's actually a good point. Maybe they should start
it. It's simpler and it's not as aggressive. Also with limit hold'em, if you're a new player, you're not going to get buried as often. Because the issue before no limit was popular and limit hold'em was spread everywhere, the thing was there was one no limit game, but the bad player never had a chance. He always went broke, right? In limit, the bad players have a chance. They actually win sometimes, and they don't lose their entire bankroll on hands, right? Which is a big gutting blow. It's that whole you can shear sheep many times, but you can skin him only once. In limit hold'em, you're shearing the sheep, and he's losing at a gradual rate, but he's not going felted every single session. Where in no limit, it just takes one hand and they're just done.
Newsflash, someone said in the chat, limit hold'em is unbeatable. Is that true? I don't know.
How could that be true?
I think when you're learning the game, it's almost like you probably aren't going to win anyway. So although that could be false as well, depending on what game. If you're in the Dan Bilzerian games, the most popular poker player in the world, debatably, then you might be able to win in some of those games that they're playing limit hold'em.
If you're playing small, if you start really small limits, you can beat probably any game. It doesn't necessarily have to take a long time before you turn yourself into a limit, depending where you're starting.
Okay, there was a comment. There was a comment that was just made that you said earlier before we got on. You actually answered this question. You're like, make it. You can ask me anything. I was like, okay, fine. And someone in
Yeah,
the
no, I've never.
he said, ask him, do you suck dick? And I was like,
Never. But you know what? I'm one of those guys where like I shouldn't knock it because I've never tried it. And we had this discussion earlier, right? Like I'm not a hater, you know, to each his own. If you want to, all yours. Enjoy.
okay, so you told me a story, and I'm gonna tell you a similar story too. So I was when I was like 21 years old, I moved to the city of Chicago. And I met this guy, and he was like, "Oh, have you ever done modeling? If you're interested in modeling?" I was like, "No." I got okay, sure, why not? I'll try it. So I go over there, and it's an underwear modeling thing. Okay, so you know where we're going here with this. Very similar story to what you told me. And he's like, whatever. Okay. Anyways, he says to me, he's like, "Have you ever got a blowjob from a man?" I was like, no. I was like, why? I was like, it seems weird. And he's like, you just close your eyes and just imagine it's a woman. And I was like, I'm out of here, man. That's the last time I ever messed around with anything like that. So that kind of it's you know, it sounds like the story you mentioned earlier where you met a guy and he said,
Well, that was scary. I'll tell the story because whatever. It was with Ted Forrest, Lane Flack, many, many years ago. We went to this Atlantic City. We were in Atlantic City, and there's like nowhere to go. So we went to this bar, but this bar was like a different kind of bar. It was like, you know, there's straight people, but there's also gay people, whatever. And there was this black dude who kind of looked like Usher. And I was wearing an Armani Exchange shirt, you know, which says AX.
yeah.
And so Ted was talking to them, and there was this like, what do you call them? The over 160 group. There was a girl there that like,
Big
you know,
girl grinding.
yeah. So Ted was, I don't know, Ted is weird, so he was talking to her, and so the guy, the black dude, was like, you know, so she asked him like, "What are you doing tonight?" He's like, "I don't know, but I'm hoping I'm doing something with an A and an X on it." And I was like, right? So then, two altercations. I went to the bathroom, right? I'll tell you, I went to the bathroom. It's a small bathroom. I went there, and he walked in, and there was nobody else in the bathroom. So I'm just like going to wash my hands, right? And he's like, he asked me a question. I said, "Hey, bro, like, no, it's all cool. I don't judge, but I'm not gay." And then he put his hand in the door, and he's bigger than me, and he's like, "How do you know if you don't try it?" And I was like, "Buddy, I just know. Promise, like, I just know." And so I was a little scared. My heart was racing, right? Because I thought I may just be getting raped in the bathroom. Luckily, that didn't happen, so I left. And like 2 hours later, I went to the bathroom, right? He was already in there, and he was peeing, and he had his purple penis out, and he literally, he showed it to, and I just ran out the door. I ran out of the bathroom with Ted, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. It was like creepy because that was like the first altercation I'd ever had. First time I ever I saw gay people was I was a teenager. I worked in this like dinner theater, and I remember like the first time I worked there, I was a busboy, and I would carry a tray covering my butt, right? Because like I was afraid that I would, you know, I didn't know. I didn't know anything about that culture. I didn't know anything about those people. And I remember like getting friendly with them or whatever, and there was this one guy named Chris that we called Christina because he was whatever. And I remember talking to him, and it was the first time it opened my mind about just like homosexuality and like how it starts. Like, so I asked him, I was like, "How old were you when you knew you were gay?" And he asked me like, "How old were you when you knew you were straight?" And I said, "I've always been straight." And he goes, right? So he told me like he remembered being like 4 or 5 years old and being attracted to guys. So it opened my eyes, and like now I have two assistants that are both gay. One is Patty, she's a woman, and Joel, who's a guy who's been, you know, he used to work in Hollywood and stuff for Sandra Bullock and stuff. And I have much more of an appreciation for like their rights. It's like for me the civil rights issue of our time, right? So I think a lot of the time when people, you know, when people say that to me, I used to defend it, like ask me if I was gay. Like I used to defend, but then I realized that's actually offensive in a sense. Like even if I was, so what? Who cares? Right? I don't have any problem with other people who are gay, so even if I was, big deal. Why would I? Because in the past I'd be like, no, I'm not. Like, well, what for? You know, you can think what you want. It's cool. Like, I don't care. But like, I support, you know, their efforts, and I'm always gonna like be public about what I believe in, whether or not people think I'm gay. Or, I don't care. Like, it really doesn't. It just, I think it's funny actually, for the most part. Especially some of the stuff I see on Twitter. There's some good stuff.
We gotta do like 20 minutes in DN's mentions and see the kind of things that people say to you.
I get some good ones.
Do you get a lot of hateful things on Twitter? Do you get a lot of love? What's the kind of overall vibe in terms of your comments you get?
Well, the thing about social media, right? And you look at forums like, you know, the 2+2 forum, for example, and the internet has created like a new type of culture where you don't have to be in somebody's face and say something to them. You can hide behind a keyboard and just be that guy. So the majority of like comments you'll see are going to be negative because that's typically what people post. Like if you look at a Yelp review of a hair salon, right? The majority of the reviews are typically going to be bad. Because when someone has a good experience, they don't think, oh, I can't wait to get online and write a great experience. If they have a bad experience, they're so much more likely to write something, right? So when you read stuff on the internet, you have to take it with a grain of salt and realize that it doesn't necessarily reflect what people's views of you are. So like if you read 2+2 and you went to NVG, you would think I'm like the most hated man in poker.
Yes.
Where I'm a douchebag, I'm a phony, I'm a fake, I'm all those things, right? Because it's very consistent. And I feel like a lot of it is mob mentality, where it's like cool to hate on me, right? And I'm like, whatever, like, oh yeah, it's cool. It's like it's not cool to like me, right? So it's easier to just not like me. But that's a very small representation of the poker community as a whole, right? Because I don't think like of all the guys that I play with, the ones who actually make it to the high rollers or whatever, I have a good relationship with a lot of the people that were from 2+2. It's this other group that I've never really met, or they've never had a chance to speak to me or talk to me, that make assumptions about who I am without actually knowing who I am. And I really don't allow it to get to me because I don't take it personal. Like when people have that much hate for someone they don't know, I look at it a different way now. I'm like, what is going wrong in that person's life, right? That they have so much animosity for someone they don't even know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So what do you think changed in your own outlook on things for you to come to that? So when someone says like these kind of hateful things to you, now you think about what made you get to that point?
Well, to be honest, like I did that course Choice Center a couple of years ago, which a lot of people call the cult, and they said I was in a cult, right? True. So yeah. I did the course like 2 years ago, and it was a big revelation for me, not only from the hater perspective, but a bigger part. So what I got from it was the first weekend, I realized that I'd lost my confidence related to my broken heart. Like I was in love with this girl, absolutely madly in love with her, and it didn't work out. She broke my heart, and I was like distraught. I thought I dealt with it, right? But I didn't realize how much of an effect that had on my entire level of confidence. So when I would read on the internet, kids saying like he can't beat the young guys anymore, I'd be like, yeah, maybe they're right. Like, oh, he's not good enough. He's over the hill. I started to believe it, right? Then in the second weekend, which is called Breakthrough, I broke through that and realized it's just all stories I'm making up in my head. Like I've been on top of tournament poker before. I understand what they're learning, and I also have wisdom on my side, and I've done it before. So I broke through that, and I had a new level of confidence. So aside from just like not letting the hater stuff affect me personally, I didn't let other people's view of my game affect how I saw my own game. I know I do things differently than a lot of the young kids would in terms of they'll see things and they'll see it as a fundamental flaw. I'm okay with that because I understand the overriding picture of what I'm creating in terms of an image and how people perceive it, and I know how to manipulate it. So I may make plays that are in a vacuum. That's wrong. And if someone brought me the hand, I'd be like, well, that's clearly wrong. But it's not wrong necessarily in the context of what I'm creating on a bigger level. I've been doing this a long time. I've been successful year in and year out playing tournament poker, playing against the best in the world. So I've gotten more tapped into that confidence by not allowing, people I don't know to decide for me whether or not I can win. I like it actually. To be honest with you, I use it as fuel now. And anytime I'm doubted, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, we'll see. We'll see how next year looks. So I kind of look at it as fuel rather than allow it to destroy my confidence.
So you think this is a big reason why? I mean, when you take a look at things over time, so you kind of came onto the scene years ago, and when you look at things right now, what players from your time when you started are really still here, still doing well? You take a look at someone like Gus Hansen, might be doing well on other ventures outside of poker. At poker, not doing very well, put it nicely. And
you can say that. I saw his online numbers. That's bad. Like at some point you got to wonder, like maybe they're better than me. I don't know. Like I figure like 18 million is probably enough to decide that.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think sets you apart? Like, how are you still doing well? How are you still competing in these same fields when I'd say 80% of the other players that have been playing then really aren't playing more now or have success right now?
I think the number one attribute to be a successful poker player, and what separates me from a lot of them, is self-awareness. And the ability to like take a deeper look and go, okay, am I up to date in what I'm doing and what I'm, the way that I'm playing? And I look at high stakes poker as a really good learning experience for me in that regard. Like I obviously got my mind, I just got destroyed on that show. Part of it was bad luck, and then I got coolered a lot. But part of it was just me not being like at a level in that game where I should have been. Like, and so here's the thing with high stakes poker, I was experimenting with a lot of things because I'd played cash games all my life, but not no limit hold'em. Mixed games. I'd always been successful with that. I really didn't have a lot of pedigree in playing no limit cash. So when I was playing high stakes poker, I was going in with a mentality and a view of how to play that was based on what worked in the past, right? So I was learning as I was going through it, and a lot of it was ugly because, you know, again, whenever you take like 3, 4 sick coolers in a row, it's going to affect your confidence. And then, like, the stuff I was doing was kind of like, what did I do that for? That was dumb. Like, the worst hand I ever played probably was a hand against Eric Lindgren, where it came like Queen Jack 8, and I had 9-10, and then the turn was an 8, and I bet and he called, and the river was an ace, and I bet and he shoved, and I called with a straight. It was like, there's no way in hell he's ever bluffing there, but I leveled myself 17 times and then called. Like, that's, for me, the worst hand I've ever played. And there's a long list of bad hands that I played on the show. So I'm glad I played on the show because I realized that there were things that I was missing, that I just wasn't up to date. And a lot of it had to do with that period in my life. I was doing a lot of promotional stuff for PokerStars. I wasn't working on my game. I wasn't getting better. I was staying this way. So that was a great opportunity to, like, reflect and be self-aware and go, okay, bottom line is, I have no clue what they're doing. Like, I'm totally out of the loop here, and the way that I'm playing is just not going to be successful. So I could blame it on bad luck, and a lot of people say, well, you were unlucky, but there's no power in that. I look at, like, what did I not do to be successful on the show? And it was just not be prepared in terms of practicing or even, you know, playing much cash before that.
We're going to come back to the high-stakes poker because there's all kind of fun things we can say about that. You mentioned a person's name, Eric Lindgren, who obviously, in the poker world right now, you know, he doesn't have that good reputation, and it seems like you've kind of stayed on his side in terms of the issues and with him not paying for certain bets and things like that.
So here's the thing. If I gave you a list of names that are beloved by the poker world right now, and people love them, right? They owe me money, several of them. Several of them owe me 100,000, 20,000, like, they all owe me money. I'm not going to out them to you. I know they're degens. They're good people at the core, but they've made some stupid decisions with their bankroll. They've screwed a lot of people over by making bad decisions. He's one of them, clearly, where he got himself in over his head. But, like, if you think about it in a bigger picture, when Full Tilt was running and going, these are all debts that he was going to pay. Like, he was paying debts. It just took him a long time because he was overextending himself, gambling above his means. That gravy train stopped, right? So now he was left with the bag empty and no real outs in terms of paying. So I don't condone anything that he did. I don't think it's right, but he's hardly the only one. Like, again, I don't want to name names, but there's people that are beloved in the 2+2 community that owe me money, and they have for years, and they're playing big games, and they still haven't paid me, like, not a cent of it. But I'm not going to out them because I will to the community of people like that, you know, deal with them in the games and stuff. And if someone asks me, like, should I loan him money? I'm like, well, listen, he's owed me 100 for 4 years and hasn't paid, right? But I've never been part of that crew where it's like, let's go on the internet and blast people for being degens. Like, I look at the responsible version of that. I chose to give those people money. Nobody put a gun to my head to loan that guy 100,000. Nobody put a gun to my head to loan this guy 20. That doesn't say what they're doing is right. It's not. But who's responsible for being out 100,000? Me, 100%, because I made the choice to gamble with them or to risk that risk. So again, I don't condone it, but I don't see the value in whining about it or being a victim to it. I made the decision.
I think the value comes in that these people let, like, so for Eric Linden, for example, they let people know that, oh, he owes money. It's almost to, like, as a public service, like, hey, maybe they don't have that same reach that you have where you can tell these people, like, hey, and even I think in a way you maybe not telling the names of the people that owe you these large amounts of money, like, you can only really talk to so many people. It's just like, then they can borrow from people in the future, and that's kind of the reason why people out people is that then they can't get in that fantasy league next year. For Eric Linden, for example, he didn't pay this year. Well, now he can't do it again next year, or now he can't free roll someone in something else in the future, just because now everyone knows that, oh, this is a big problem with him. And I think that's why people out people, is that just
and I don't listen. I just talk about how I do it. I'm not saying it's wrong. You know, I don't think that there's anything wrong with telling people, like, this is a bad creditor. You know, you don't want to loan this person money. It's personally not how I choose to do it because I look at it from a different place. Like, I learned my lessons throughout my career. When I was young, the majority of my bankrolls, every time I lost them, was because I was loaning people money or staking people, and I wasn't getting paid or I was getting screwed and whatever. So, like, I learned the hard way, you know, how to build like, learn how to trust people and build integrity. So, and I understand, like, so a lot of these people that are degens, right, I have a little bit of empathy for them, I'm not going to lie, right, because I've been broke, you know, and I started out in Vegas, and I did things where I was like, you know, borrow money and not sure if I could pay back in a certain time that I could, and I had to win. And so I have a little bit of empathy for that, you know, those that suffer from that, you know, because I've been there before I was successful. I don't think it's okay, like, it's a breach of their integrity, but again, I always look at it from the other perspective in that, you know, I learned from it. I learned by loaning these people money and not getting paid, how to deal with that kind of stuff in the future. And again, I don't have a problem with other people doing it, but it's not something that I take part in. So everyone's expecting me to throw coal on Eric Lindgren. You know what I mean? If you want to be in integrity, you have to throw coal on him. I don't throw coal on people that I don't like, that owe me lots of money. So why would I do that to a guy who has been a friend of mine for a long time, right? It just doesn't work. It's not. I don't believe I'm out of integrity with it at all, right? I don't believe it's two-faced. I don't believe that what Howard was, when I was vocal about Howard and Annie, what they were doing on a corporate level in terms of mistakes and hurting people, very different than the degens I know who borrow money from people to play poker with. And I've never outed people. There's one guy in particular who I really don't even like, right? But he owes me 6 figures, right? It would be fun to blast him out and go, you guys think he's this? He's busted. But I'm not going to do that, because what does that do? For me, it just makes me it might be a little satisfaction in the moment. Then I feel kind of scummy, to be honest. That's just me. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
I mean, I know Brad Booth owed some money to Doug Polk for a little bit of time, and I think maybe Doug getting back some of that money was because he did out him on 2+2. So it actually helped him get paid back.
Sure. Yeah.
Some money that he might never have gotten paid back. So.
Yeah. No, again, like I said, I mean, it's a different world, and again, like I said, it's new. Now, well, especially with the staking, online staking, I think it actually makes a lot of sense, to be honest. If you have a guy who plays online and he gets staked and he screwed people, right? It's such a different world where it's you don't see each other all the time. The world I grew up in, everybody plays in the game. Everyone knows. So when that guy walks in, everyone knows he owes money. It's not a new thing. So it's a protected environment that's very small. Now, I realize it's different now because, with the online world, there's people all over the world that are screwing people over. So having a base or a hub where people can find out who the bad apples are, I got no problem with it. It's just not something that I grew up really, being a part of.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to don't loan money. I mean, it's easy to say don't loan money, but it's almost be very careful who you loan money to. I don't
believe in don't loan money. I believe that when I was, if nobody ever loaned me money when I was a teenager in my early 20s, then I wouldn't be where I am today. So that's part of why I loan money today, in spots where I believe I can make a difference for somebody or help somebody. And I do that on a different level, not just for poker, but for people in their life, not just a degen, but to try to help people get back on their feet in spots where I believe a little kickstart might help them.
You mentioned Choice Center earlier too, and Bruno brought up in the chat. He said, could Daniel talk about the impact of Choice Center? I think that's how he worded it. Can Daniel talk about how Choice Center's had an impact on him? And obviously, as you mentioned before, on 2+2, it's looked at as this big cult sort of thing, brainwashing. And I've had some discussions with a couple people that were in Choice Center, and I thought the things that they were saying were actually pretty, seemed to be pretty helpful. I thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I had a great experience personally. One of the biggest things I got was, well, actually, one story that I used to tell. So the girl that I was in love with, right? I used to look at that story like I was a victim, right? Where she did this, she did that, she did all these things, poor me, right? Well, I learned to look at it a different way, where I was responsible for all the choices I made, for being with her, for wanting to be with her, for all those things. So I brought it upon myself. And what I realized is by doing that, I was now empowered with the ability to choose everything in my life. I'm not a victim to circumstance. It's an event that happened in my life. Now I have a choice. I can choose to let it ruin me, or I can choose to use it as a learning experience so that it sets me on a different trajectory in my life. What I believe that the course does for people is it's a mirror, right? It's an intense, environment where you can have a mirror up at your face and see what doesn't work in your life and why. Where did it come from, and what tools can you gain to get through that, right? And I would say, I just had a friend finish it this weekend. I would say that probably 1 out of 20 people that I've sent there, they leave after the first weekend, or they don't even finish the first weekend because a lot of the time it's because they're not willing to take that deep look at themselves. Because it can be scary for a lot of people, right? To take that deeper look into why you are the way you are, why you wear the masks that you wear, right? But I've had so much value, not just in doing the course, but also in having other people go. I've had friends go through there and have life-changing experiences on a bigger level. The first 2 days I went, I wasn't into it either. I was like, I don't know, man. This is kind of kooky. I don't really like it. It's not for me. I didn't have any mommy and daddy issues or whatever. I've got a blessed family. But I trusted my agent, Brian, who's the all-American. He's a lawyer, married with 3, kids. And he's like, dude, just hang in there. It gets better. So I did. And I'm glad that I did because, like I said, it tapped into a confidence that I didn't realize where I'd lost it. And then I was given the tools to figure out how to be the best version of myself on a more consistent basis. So again, I mean, the one guy there's a couple people who are like really anti it, and they haven't done it, but they just feel like they know everything about it, right?
Yeah.
Which is really kind of frustrating for me, because they're talking about it from a position of like knowing, when all they've done is read stuff on the internet. And like I said earlier, when people write stuff on the internet, typically it's going to be negative experiences, right? So there are some people who have negative experiences. They don't like it. They don't want to take that deep look at themselves. They're not typically the people who finish. And like I said, if over 90% of people that do it have a great experience, I don't see any problem with it. I've never seen anyone do it and their life is worse off as a result, right? Like, they're not like, oh, choice ruined my life. I've never heard anyone I mean, maybe you could make a case for people saying that, but no one I know has ever said that.
So I guess you'd almost advocate a lot of people trying it out and giving it a shot.
Look at it this way, right? I look at it this way. Let's say you do 2 weekends, right? Let's say you get absolutely nothing out of it. Just nothing. You do 2 weekends, you learn nothing about yourself, you learn nothing. So you're here. You'll be exactly where you were, except $2,700 later, right? Because you spent that money. But the other possibility is you learn things that help you get to whatever dream life it is or whatever vision it is more quickly, or that it opens up possibilities you didn't know existed, right? So even if you got one nugget of information that improved your life maybe 5%, would it be worth 2 weekends when your risk is minimal? Like, I look at the risk as being, okay, obviously the $2,700 it costs to do the course, but outside of that, if you don't like it, you can leave. It's not a cult. It's the actually antithesis of a cult. It's the opposite of a cult. And if you look up the definition and what the course actually is, it's exactly the opposite. And I mean, it's not like you're locked in. You can, if you don't like it, you can always leave. But I always feel like, there was a saying I heard. It's like the height of ignorance is the height of ignorance is refuting something that you know nothing about, right? So if you've never done it, right, condemning or telling other people not to do it or whatever, based on the fact that you read some stuff on the internet versus firsthand experiences from people like myself and Christy Arnett and my agent Brian and a long list of people that have gone through the course that are doing just fine, right? Yeah, I just don't see the harm in it. It's like one of those things. What's the worst thing that can happen? Worst case scenario. As a poker player, I look at it as a very low risk situation. And that's the way I looked at it. What's the worst? Worst thing is 2 weekends I spend there. I don't like it. Okay, no big deal. But that's not what happened. I got a lot out of it.
I've used that. I've said, what's the worst that can happen before I've done a lot of things in my life, and still here. So I guess
Yeah.
It's up for everyone's interpretation on how they view that, and if they want
if
to.
If you don't want to do it, cool, whatever. But I it's fine if people don't want to do it, cool. But why hold other people back from doing it? What is the fear? What are they afraid is going to happen, right? So other people on a crusade to say don't do it. Because of what are you afraid that's going to happen? What evidence is there of people that that have gone through the course that have destroyed their lives, or that are murdering babies, or that are committing suicide? There are no stories like that come from the Choice Center. This work many years ago had a bad rap because some weird Kool-Aid shit happened with this kind of work, in the early '80s, right? But that's not what we do there. It's very open. It's there's no Kool-Aid. We sacrifice lambs and drink lamb blood. Obviously.
Well, I think what it could be is a price tag. So you said $2,700. That's to some people that's a pretty good amount of money.
Absolutely. So if $2,700 is not something you're comfortable doing, don't pay it, right? If you don't feel like you can, so I would look at it this way: spend the $2,700 with no expectation, if you can. If you can't, then don't. But if you feel like you can spend that $2,700 for the possibility of you getting nothing out of it, so you could burn that money, then go for it. If $2,700 is so important to you, more important to you than whatever vision it is that you have for your life, or the possibility of this being a vehicle to get there, right? If that's the case, then no one's forcing anyone to go. A lot of people that go, here's the thing, they want everyone else to go, right? So that's when it gets creepy, because people are ooh, that's very cultish, right? But it's the analogy I would make is if you saw the best movie of your life, your favorite movie of all time, what's the first thing you typically do? You go on social media, you tell people on Twitter, you got to see this movie. You tell all your friends, dude, you're going to love this movie, it's going to be awesome. So with this thing, a lot of people have such powerful experiences that, of course, the first thing they do is they tell their friends and family, this is awesome, you should do this. It's just normal.
So, okay, there are people out there that are probably going to say, this is ridiculous. There are also people that are probably going to say, I'm interested in what he's talking about right now. Well, if they want to find out more information about this, where could they go?
Well, you can go to www.choicecenter.com, right? And if you go there, one of the things you can do is you can like call, and then you can get like a free 30-minute, introductory coaching call. There's no obligation or whatever. You just get one of the coaches that'll talk to you for 30 minutes about what are your dreams, what's holding you back from getting them, what's possible for you, and whether or not this is something that might be, be of interest to you. And it's total. There's like no obligation. They also have guest events occasionally, and there's actually live streams of it. Some of the guest events, I've attended a few of them, where like they're live streamed in terms of part of what the work we do, and you can find those online on the site too, I think, as well.
Well, there you go. If anyone's interested in that, well, that's you guys said that. What you said, dreams. I love the word dreams. What are your dreams still in poker? It seems like you may have achieved some of your dreams. I guess you didn't win the main event. I'm sure that's probably a dream you have. But what are
World Series is definitely. My dreams are focused, like in terms of poker, my career, it's like a lot of it's heavily focused on the World Series of Poker. Because I plan on traveling less. I've got less to prove outside of that, but the World Series of Poker, there's a lot of areas where I feel like I want to, improve my numbers. It's like a video game, right? I want to be number one on every list, right? I want the high score, right? So, the most bracelets, winning the main event, all-time, like all that stuff. I look at caches every year, and that's fun for me. It's like every summer I love grinding every day at the World Series of Poker. It's like one of my favorite things to do. It's really fun.
So I guess the dreams are all World Series of Poker related for the most part. Anything outside of that?
Well, I mean, that's what's coming to mind right now in terms of poker. I don't really play a lot of poker outside of the big tournaments, and when I'm here in Vegas, I never play. I literally never go to Bellagio and play because there's always other things that I'd rather do. Like I play soccer Wednesday nights. I'm playing slow pitch baseball on Thursdays. I go to the gym 4 days a week. I watch some TV, some good series. I watch sports. So I'm living the dream life that I envisioned when I was 20 years old and started playing poker, or like even younger. Said I want to be able to like be a big kid that can do whatever the hell I want when I want, and that's like, this is kind of it. I'm ecstatic about where I'm at right now, and I love being at home.
Now it's kind of like maintaining the dream that you've, I guess, got yourself into, and then maybe along the way you figure out new things that you might want to.
Yeah, like getting involved with the hockey thing, like potentially being a part owner in the new Las Vegas franchise, the NHL team that comes here. That could be something that's like a new vertical in my life. There's a lot of areas in my life I feel like I can expand. I can be bigger. I can take risks. I can make a bigger difference for other people. Like that's something else that really means a lot to me. Like we did our first St. Jude's charity event last November. We raised $380,000 in one night for the kids at St. Jude's, and I had a guy last night who I didn't know. He came up to me, and he was emotional. He was being very vulnerable, and he was thanking me for St. Jude's because he explained to me that he has a daughter that were it not for St. Jude's wouldn't be here today. And it's because of he thanked me and said it's because of people like you and others who help this great cause that helps families stay whole and gives hope to kids who have very little. And St. Jude's, what's most remarkable about them is they don't turn any children away, ever. And that's part of the reason why they've been able to cure such diseases that had maybe like a 4% survival rate is now up to 92, 94. And even better is they don't patent it. They don't use it for profit. They give it away. They find the cure, they find the method, and they give it to the world because they just want to eradicate, kids with cancer. And I think that's the kind of work that I want to do more of because that's like I've got money, right? So how can I make a bigger impact on the world? I can use that as leverage. I can use my celebrity status, if you will, to inspire others to realize that a life worth living is one where you live it for others and you serve and you make a difference and not just be so focused inside.
And that's kind of a pretty cool thing to say. I think you sometimes hear people say things like that too, but maybe behind closed doors they don't necessarily live that sort of lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I feel like from all I've heard about you from other people, though, it definitely seems like you actually do. You know what I mean? You're not that type of person. You're actually the type of person. You say something like that, you actually do it. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people have respect for is that someone that can say something and then that's the kind of actual person they are instead of just I want to do this, I want to do that, but then they're over here doing these. Yeah. Not so. I
love coaching. I mean, I literally coach someone almost every day, whether it's a friend, whether it's somebody who's gone to Choice Center or who's going through it. Like I find it's so fun to talk to somebody and help them see a possibility that they didn't see before, and that light bulb goes off. That's like an adrenaline rush. It feels really good. So that's kind of like a view of the life that I kind of want to lead. You know, in service to others, doing my own thing, having fun. You know, winning titles, like playing games, like I always did as a kid.
Colby said you mentioned TV shows. Give us like quick two TV shows that you're watching that you'd recommend to people out there.
Okay, right now I'm on season 4 of Homeland. I just finished Sons of Anarchy, all 7. That was pretty solid. And my next one up would be House of Cards, Game of Thrones. You know, my TV game's on point. But listen, I actually have a doctor's appointment in 20 minutes.
Okay.
So I got to run.
We're gonna wrap it up then. That's it, Daniel. We might try to get you back on for a part 2 if you're interested.
Okay, sounds good, bud.
Cool. Hit the Dodge Someone guys. Shout outs. I'll see you guys soon. I'll be back
boys.
actually. All right,
take care.
Peace out. Guys in the chat, much love. Adios.